The night he abandoned her, the wind smelled of gasoline and salt, and the sky hung low like it was holding its breath. The headlights cut a pale tunnel through the desert road, then vanished, and with them went the last illusion that love alone could keep a life together. 8 months pregnant, stranded beside a remote gas station that flickered like a dying star, she stood with one hand on her swollen belly and felt the world crack open beneath her feet. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of people who refuse to give up even when the world turns its back on them, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Her name was Aisha, and until that night, her life had looked like something lifted from a glossy magazine. She had married a self-made millionaire whose name opened doors and whose smile charmed rooms full of strangers. They lived in a glass-walled mansion overlooking the sea, drove cars that hummed like dreams, and vacationed at resorts where the sand was groomed and the sunsets were scheduled. But behind the beauty, something had been eroding for months, quietly and relentlessly. Success had hardened him. The baby had frightened him. And love, once loud and generous, had become conditional and brittle. The drive had started as an argument wrapped in forced politeness. He said the beach resort would be good for her nerves, that the ocean air might calm her. She said little, exhausted and heavy with life, watching the road slide past. When the car slowed at the gas station, she thought he was being thoughtful, stopping for fuel and rest. Instead, he pulled in, parked under the buzzing light, and told her he needed space. The words were careful, rehearsed, like a speech he had practiced in the mirror. He handed her a small amount of cash, told her someone would come for her, and then drove away toward the coast, toward music and cocktails and a life unburdened by responsibility. The gas station sat miles from anywhere, a lone building surrounded by scrub and silence. The attendant had already closed for the night, leaving behind locked doors and a broken vending machine. Aisha sat on a cracked bench, the concrete cold even through her clothes, and felt the baby shift inside her as if sensing danger. Fear rose in waves. She had never been alone like this, never been without staff, without security, without the assurance that money could solve whatever problem appeared. Now the desert stretched endlessly, and the stars felt sharp and judgmental. Hours passed. Trucks roared by without stopping. Her phone battery dwindled, then died. She tried to breathe steadily, remembering the prenatal classes she had attended with half attention, never imagining she would need that calm in a place like this. Pain tightened her lower back, not labor, she told herself, just stress. She wrapped her arms around her belly and whispered promises that no one else could hear. Promises to protect, to endure, to survive. As dawn approached, the temperature dropped. Aisha's mind wandered through memories of her marriage, the early days when he had been generous and tender, when they had dreamed together of a child who would inherit the best of them both. She remembered the moment she told him she was pregnant, the way his smile had faltered before returning, slightly forced. She saw now what she had refused to see then. Wealth had given him power, but it had also given him the illusion that he could abandon consequences as easily as he abandoned her that night. When the sun finally rose, painting the desert in pale gold, a battered pickup truck pulled in. The driver, an older woman, with weathered hands and kind eyes, took one look at Aisha and understood without questions. She offered water, a blanket, and a ride to the nearest town, a place so small it barely registered on maps. The town had one clinic, one diner, and a motel that smelled of bleach and old hopes. Aisha spent the last of her cash on a room and collapsed onto the bed, sobbing until sleep claimed her. The days that followed were a blur of uncertainty. The clinic doctor confirmed the baby was fine but warned her to avoid stress. That advice felt almost cruel. She tried calling her husband from the motel's front desk phone, but each call went unanswered. News reached her through social media screens in the diner. Photos of him at the beach resort surfaced, laughing, surrounded by friends, the ocean glittering behind him. There was no mention of her. No explanation. Just silence where love should have been. With no way back to her old life, Aisha faced a truth she had never imagined: she would have to build something new from nothing. Pride fell away quickly when survival took its place. She cleaned rooms at the motel in exchange for a small wage and a longer stay. The work was hard on her body, but the manager was gentle, letting her rest often. The townspeople noticed her quiet strength, the way she carried herself with dignity despite her circumstances. They brought her meals, knitted tiny clothes, and offered rides to the clinic. In their simple kindness, she found something she had never known in her wealthy world: community. As weeks passed, her husband's name appeared in the news for reasons unrelated to her. A risky investment had gone wrong. Lawsuits followed. The image of the untouchable millionaire began to crack. From a distance, Aisha watched his empire wobble. She felt no joy in his downfall, only a strange calm. The power dynamic that had once trapped her was shifting, and she was no longer standing beneath it. One evening, a letter arrived at the motel. The handwriting was familiar, once loved, now unsettling. He wrote of regret, of mistakes made under pressure, of a desire to explain. He wrote of the beach resort feeling empty, of the sound of waves reminding him of what he had thrown away. Aisha read the letter slowly, her hand resting on her belly, feeling the baby's steady movements. Forgiveness hovered like a distant shore, visible but far. She did not respond. Labor began on a stormy night, thunder rolling over the desert like judgment. The clinic staff worked quickly, calmly, and by dawn, Aisha held her daughter for the first time. In that small room, surrounded by people who had known her only briefly yet cared deeply, she felt a fierce, overwhelming love. The baby's tiny fingers curled around hers, anchoring her to the present and to a future she would shape with her own hands. Motherhood transformed her exhaustion into purpose. She named her daughter Noor, meaning light, because that was what she had become. Life was still difficult. Money was tight. Sleep was rare. But each challenge felt surmountable in a way her old life never had. She enrolled in online courses during nap times, learning skills she had once dismissed as unnecessary. The motel manager helped her apply for a better position. Slowly, steadily, she climbed. Months later, her husband appeared in town, thinner, quieter, stripped of the arrogance that had once defined him. He stood awkwardly in the diner, eyes searching for her. When they finally faced each other, the air was heavy with everything unsaid. He spoke of remorse, of therapy, of understanding too late what he had lost. Aisha listened, not with anger, but with clarity. She saw him now as a flawed man, not a savior, not a villain, just someone who had made a devastating choice. She did not rush forgiveness. She did not close the door entirely. Instead, she set boundaries rooted in self-respect and the needs of her child. Any path forward would require patience, accountability, and time. Whether he would rise to that challenge remained uncertain, but for the first time, the uncertainty did not terrify her. She had survived abandonment in the desert. She had given birth with nothing but courage and help from strangers. She trusted herself. Years later, the gas station still flickered on that lonely road, but its meaning had changed. It was no longer just a place of abandonment. It was the place where her old life ended and her real strength began. Aisha returned once, standing under the same buzzing light, holding Noor's hand, feeling the echo of that night without being consumed by it. She had turned pain into power, loss into love. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even in the darkest moments there can be unexpected light, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps these stories reach the people who are waiting to hear them. And before we end, please comment below with one word that describes how this story made you feel. Your words matter, and they help build a community of empathy and hope. Because sometimes, the moment someone leaves you behind is the moment you discover how strong you truly are, and how far you can go when you choose yourself and the life growing within you.